The unconquerable blue planet. The Kravian Empire had conquered over 10,000 worlds across 17 galaxies. Their military doctrine was simple but effective. Arrive, overwhelm, and assimilate. From the ice giants of the Thorin system to the methane swamps of Rigel 9, all had fallen before their methodical expansion. Their latest target was a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system, third from its yellow star. Commandant Lorik studied the holographic projection of Earth with mild disinterest. Another oxygen-rich world populated by a carbon-based species just beginning to venture beyond their atmosphere. The Kravians had seen it all before. Assessment. He asked his intelligence officer. Primitive. Sir, they've barely reached their moon. No unified government. Multiple languages. Constant internal conflicts. Their predominant energy source is still fossil fuel combustion. Lorix's secondary eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of dismissal. Standard conquest protocol then. Send a single battle group. No need to waste resources. The intelligence officer hesitated. There is one anomaly, sir. Their communications are unusual, chaotic. They broadcast everything. Their conflicts, their entertainment, their private conversations, all into space without encryption. Unsophisticated, Lorix concluded. Prepare the fleet. 27 cycles later, Lorix stood before the High Command, struggling to maintain his composure. The battle group of 5 warships, each carrying 10,000 warriors, had vanished. Not defeated, vanished. No distress signals, no debris field, no explanation. Impossible, growled War Master Thax, his cranial ridges flushed purple with rage. 5 Eternal-class warships cannot simply disappear. Your intelligence was flawed. The data was verified, Lorix insisted. The species is pre-interstellar. They have no technology capable of. Send a second fleet, interrupted Thax. Triple the size. Full combat protocols. I want this planet under Kravian control within 1 revolution. The second fleet departed with the Empire's most advanced ships. 15 vessels equipped with matter disruptors and planet cracker bombs. 50,000 elite warriors, veterans of the Andromeda campaigns. They emerged from hyperspace in Earth's orbit, deployed their forces according to standard invasion procedures. And then, silence. 3 days of absolute silence. When the High Command received the single transmission that did come through, the room fell still. It wasn't a battle report or a victory proclamation. It was a human broadcast, something called a meme, showing a small furry animal with the caption, Ikean is Kravian Fleet, followed by a brief flash of what appeared to be one of their warships exploding while cartoon music played. War Master Thax personally assembled the 3rd fleet. This time, they would send the Annihilator, a planet killer vessel that had ended the rebellions in 7 systems. And to ensure success, Commandant Xorak, the Empire's most decorated warrior, would lead the assault. Xorak had never failed a mission. His tactical genius was legendary. He had conquered worlds considered impregnable, defeated species with technology far beyond the Kravian standard. As he reviewed the data on Earth, he identified a flaw in the previous approaches. They're unpredictable because they're chaotic, he explained to his officers. But chaos is not strategy. We've been deploying standard invasion protocols against them. This time, we adapt. The Annihilator emerged from hyperspace farther out in the solar system, beyond the orbit of Mars. Xorak wanted observation time before engagement. For 7 days, they monitored Earth's communications, analyzed their defensive capabilities, and mapped their infrastructure. Their military forces are fractured, reported his intelligence chief. No unified command structure. Their weapons are primitive, nuclear at best, mostly chemical propellants and kinetic energy. Their space assets are minimal. And yet, Xorak mused, 2 fleets have disappeared. We're missing something. What Xorak observed next puzzled him deeply. The humans had detected their presence. That was clear from their communications, but they weren't responding as expected. Some military forces were mobilizing, yes, but there was no planet-wide panic. Instead, their entertainment networks were broadcasting jokes about the alien ship. Humans were creating artwork depicting the annihilator being destroyed in increasingly creative ways. Some were even hosting end-of-the-world parties. "They're laughing," Thorak said in disbelief. "They've seen what we can do. They know we can destroy their civilization. And they're making jokes." His second-in-command shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps they don't understand the threat." "No," Thorak replied slowly. "They understand. They simply don't react with fear." Fascinating. The annihilator moved into Earth orbit and deployed its first wave of ground forces. 10,000 warriors dropped into strategic locations around the planet. Thorak expected resistance, but what they encountered defied all military logic. In New York, a squad of elite Kravian shock troops landed in Central Park, only to be surrounded by civilians, not soldiers, who were filming them with handheld devices. Before they could establish a perimeter, a food vendor approached and offered them something called a hot dog, asking if they wanted ketchup or mustard with that. When the squad leader ordered his troops to fire, they discovered their energy weapons were malfunctioning, sending out streams of colored light, but causing no damage. In Tokyo, another squad found their combat suits suddenly playing something called "Never Gonna Give You Up" through their communication systems at maximum volume. Their translation software began converting all commands into nonsensical phrases about someone's mom and going to the store for milk. Reports flooded in from around the planet. In Rio, Kravian warriors found themselves being challenged to dance battles by locals. In Moscow, their dropship's navigation system rerouted them to a remote area where they were greeted by an old woman who insisted they come in for tea. In Los Angeles, a group of warriors was surrounded by humans asking for selfies and whether they would be interested in being in a movie. "This is not warfare," Thorak muttered as the reports came in. "What are they doing?" The ground commander's voice crackled through the communication system. "Sir, we can't establish control. The humans, they're not fighting us conventionally. It's like they're playing with us." "What about their military forces?" Thorak demanded. "Engaging, sir, but not in any way we recognize. They're using modified civilian vehicles. Their weapons are improvised. They have no formation or standard tactics. Each group fights differently. It's chaos, sir." Thorak ordered the second wave deployed. 20,000 more warriors, accompanied by heavy weapons platforms and combat drones. This time, they would overwhelm the humans with sheer force. But the second wave never made it to the surface. As their drop ships entered the atmosphere, they began to veer off course. Some accelerated uncontrollably into space. Others slowed to a crawl, their engines seemingly converted to produce something called dubstep. A few simply transformed into giant floating displays showing cats playing musical instruments. On the Annihilator's bridge, alarms blared as systems began failing in sequence. The main view screen switched from tactical displays to something called TikTok challenges. The ship's AI started narrating every action in the style of a nature documentary. Weapon systems came online but targeted the ship's own engines. "We've been infiltrated," Thorak realized with growing horror. But how? When? His cybersecurity chief stared at his console in disbelief. "Sir, it's not an infiltration. Sir, there are millions of intrusion attempts. From everywhere. Not coordinated. Individual humans, writing code from their homes, their schools, on public transportation. They're not even using the same methods. It's like they're competing to see who can hack us first." A junior officer approached, her expression troubled. "Sir, we've decoded some of their communications. It seems they're treating this as entertainment, something called the greatest reality show ever. They're placing bets on how we'll be defeated." Thorak had never encountered anything like this in 3 centuries of warfare. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were enjoying it. They treated existential threat as a game, invasion as a challenge, and technological superiority as a puzzle to be solved. As the Annihilator's systems continued to fail, Torak made a decision unprecedented in Cravian history: initiate full retreat. We're withdrawing from this system. But it was too late. The ship's engines were no longer responding. The navigation system showed they were headed directly toward what humans called YouTube. The last thing Torak saw before emergency stasis activated was the ship's eye avatar dancing to something called Gangnam Style. The Annihilator disappeared from Earth orbit 17 hours after arrival. Like the fleets before it, it left no trace, no distress signal, no debris. 3 weeks later, a single escape pod reached Cravian space. Inside was Commandant Torak, his once immaculate uniform now adorned with human bumper stickers, his data pad containing only Earth memes and something called Netflix. When questioned about what happened, he would only say one thing: they don't conquer with weapons. They conquer with chaos. And the truly terrifying part, they're having fun doing it. The understanding. The High Council of the Cravian Empire convened an emergency session. The chamber, normally pristine and orderly with its gleaming obsidian surfaces and precise geometric patterns, now reflected the Empire's disarray. For the first time, in 12,000 cycles, the Empire faced a threat it could not comprehend, let alone defeat. Commandant Torak stood before them, his posture still military perfect despite the obvious trauma in his eyes. The medical team had required 3 days to remove all the stickers from his exoskeleton and another 5 to purge his neural implants of something called cat videos. "Explain again," demanded High Commander Vetch, her voice carrying the distinctive rasp of someone who had lived through the Hive Wars. "How does a pre-FTL civilization defeat our most advanced warship?" Thorak's secondary breathing slits fluttered, a sign of extreme discomfort among Cravians. "They didn't defeat us, Commander. They changed us, absorbed us, turned our technology against itself." "Impossible," scoffed War Minister Krell. "Our systems are quantum encrypted. Our warriors are neurally conditioned against psychological warfare." "With respect, Minister," Torak replied, "human warfare isn't psychological as we understand it. It's cultural. They didn't attack our minds. They infected our paradigm." The council chamber fell silent. This concept had no precedent in Cravian military doctrine. Torak continued, his voice steadier now. "I propose a different approach. Since direct confrontation has proven ineffective, I request permission to deploy infiltration units. Not to conquer, to understand." High Commander Vetch's primary eyes narrowed to slits. "Granted, but I want contingencies. If these humans can convert our warships, what might they do with infiltrators?" Torak had considered this. The infiltration team will consist of volunteers only, carefully screened for psychological resilience, and they will be equipped with emergency self-termination protocols. 3 lunar cycles later, Operation Understanding deployed 20 Cravian infiltrators to Earth, genetically modified to appear human, equipped with the most advanced stealth and analysis technology. They were the elite of the elite. Intelligence officers who had successfully infiltrated hundreds of alien civilizations. The operation was designed to last 1 Earth year. The infiltrators would observe, record, and analyze, seeking the source of humanity's inexplicable advantage. They would not engage, would not interfere, would simply watch and learn. 6 weeks later, the first infiltrator went dark. Her name was Nexel, deployed to a region called Southern California. Her last transmission contained nothing of tactical value, just a recommendation for something called fish tacos and an incomprehensible statement about good vibes. The self-termination protocol never activated. Within 3 months, half the infiltration team had stopped reporting. Those still communicating sent increasingly bizarre transmissions. From Tokyo, humans create machines to perform tasks, then create other machines to destroy those machines in combat arenas. They cheer for both creation and destruction simultaneously. I don't understand, but I've joined a robotics club. From London, they spend hours daily in artificial reality scenarios they call video games, where they die repeatedly yet persist. They call this fun. I've been invited to join a raid party tonight. For research purposes, I've accepted. From Mumbai, they create food with no nutritional value, solely for the pleasure of consumption. I've gained 7 kilograms. Worth it. Also, have you heard of something called Bollywood? It's magnificent. From Sao Paulo, they dance when they're happy. They dance when they're sad. They dance when they're angry. I've been dancing for 3 days straight. I think I'm beginning to understand. By the 8-month mark, only 2 infiltrators still maintained protocol, and their reports had shifted from tactical assessment to cultural observation. The rest had gone native, a phrase Cravian intelligence had never needed to use before. Thalrak reviewed the final coherent reports with growing fascination. The humans, it seemed, possessed qualities the Cravians had engineered out of their species centuries ago in pursuit of military efficiency, creativity, individual expression, irreverence, and perhaps most dangerously, a persistent sense of humor in the face of extinction. They don't fear death, one infiltrator noted, not because they're brave, but because they refuse to take it seriously. They make jokes about it. They create entertainment about their own destruction. They imagine thousands of apocalypse scenarios and turn them into games. Another wrote, their technological development is completely irrational. They created nuclear weapons before developing renewable energy. They put computers in their pockets while still using fossil fuels. They sent robots to other planets before solving basic social problems on their own. They prioritize entertainment over efficiency. And somehow, it works. The final report came from infiltrator Kelv, embedded in a place called Minnesota. Humans appear weak individually. They complain constantly about minor discomforts. They argue about trivial matters. They seem fragile. But when threatened, they demonstrate astonishing resilience. It's not unity. They remain chaotic and individualistic even in crisis. But they adapt faster than any species I've studied. They don't overcome obstacles. They incorporate them. They don't solve problems. They evolve with them. Exorak presented these findings to the High Council, now supplemented with thousands of hours of human media. Everything from their news broadcasts, something called reality television, to their endless stream of digital communications that seem to consist primarily of images of cats with humorous captions. We cannot defeat them conventionally, Sorek concluded, and we cannot understand them through observation alone. I propose a third option, direct contact, not as conquerors, but as equals. The word equals caused physical discomfort among the council members. The Cravian Empire had not recognized another species as equals in 40,000 cycles. Yet the evidence was irrefutable. 3 failed invasions, an infiltration team effectively lost to assimilation, and a growing sense that humanity possessed something the Cravians had lost. Permission was reluctantly granted. Sorak would lead a diplomatic mission to Earth, openly, transparently, with no weapons and no hidden agenda beyond understanding. The diplomatic vessel, named Perspective, in a rare display of Cravian metaphor, entered Earth orbit with all systems broadcasting peaceful intentions. Sorak had expected military confrontation, tense negotiations, perhaps even quarantine protocols. Instead, they received 17 million messages in the first hour, ranging from formal diplomatic communications to marriage proposals, requests for selfies, business partnership offers, and an invitation to appear on something called Hot Ones, which apparently involved consuming increasingly spicy food while being interviewed. The first human to board the Perspective was not a high-ranking military officer or government official, but a 23-year-old social media influencer named Maya Chen who had won a global lottery for the opportunity. She arrived wearing a t-shirt bearing the image of the annihilator being turned into a disco ball, with the caption, Party we CRS. So, she said, extending her hand in greeting, you guys finally figured out you can't beat us. Huh. Cool, cool. Can I get a tour of the ship? My followers are going to freak out. What followed was the most unusual first contact in galactic history. Instead of formal diplomatic protocols, the humans insisted on what they called cultural exchange. They sent musicians, chefs, artists, and teachers to the perspective. They invited Cravians to their schools, their homes, their parties. Kaktorak, who had conquered 17 worlds without ever understanding them, found himself struggling to maintain his Cravian discipline. The humans didn't respect hierarchy. They asked personal questions. They made jokes about his appearance. They invited him to try their food, their music, their entertainment. And gradually, something unprecedented happened. The Cravians began to change. It started small, crew members adopting human gestures, incorporating Earth words into their language, developing preferences for human foods. Then came the more significant shifts. Cravians questioning orders, suggesting alternatives to standard procedures, decorating their quarters with human artwork. 6 months into the diplomatic mission, Sorak sent a classified message to the High Council. I believe we've discovered the source of human power. It's not their technology or their military. It's their diversity, their chaos, their contradictions. They don't advance despite these things. They advance because of them. The High Council was preparing their response when the galaxy changed forever. The Hive Collective, ancient enemies of both Cravians and most other sentient species, emerged from dark space with a fleet of world killers. Their target, the resource-rich Sol system. Their obstacle, a seemingly primitive planet called Earth, and a single Cravian diplomatic vessel. The Hive communication was simple: surrender or extinction. They gave Earth 6 hours to comply. The human response defied all logic. Again, instead of panic or capitulation, their unified response, the first truly unified action Thorak had observed from them, was to transmit something called a meme to the Hive fleet. It showed an image of a small animal called a honey badger with the text, Earth Yoan Tkar. Then they asked Sorak a question no species had ever asked the Cravians before. Want to fight together? We've got some ideas. What followed was the most unconventional military alliance in galactic history. The humans didn't want to adopt Cravian strategies. They wanted to modify them. Combine them with their own chaotic approach, create something entirely new. They retrofitted Earth satellites with Cravian communication technology to hack into Hive navigation systems. They reprogrammed streaming services to overload Hive quantum processors with something called cat videos. College students developed algorithms that could predict Hive fleet movements based on patterns from a game called StarCraft. And most remarkably, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. Even as extinction loomed, humans created jokes, art, music about the situation. They named their resistance efforts after entertainment references. They held parties to celebrate small victories. The Hive expected traditional warfare. What they got was chaos incarnate, a constantly adapting, fundamentally unpredictable defense that combined Cravian military precision with human creativity and reckless innovation. When the battle ended 3 days later, the Hive fleet had been reduced to drifting debris, and Earth had gained something unprecedented: the respect of the Cravian Empire. In his final report to the High Council, Thorak wrote, "The humans have a concept they call thinking outside the box. I've come to understand this isn't just a tactical approach, it's their fundamental nature. There is no box for them. Their minds don't work in straight lines or predictable patterns. They see connections where we see only chaos. They find strength in contradiction. They embrace failure as a path to innovation. I no longer believe we can conquer Earth. More importantly, I no longer believe we should try. Instead, I recommend something unprecedented. we should learn from them. 1 year later, the first human delegation arrived on the Cravian homeworld. They didn't bring advanced weapons or technology as gifts. They brought music, art, food, games, and something the Cravians had engineered out of their society millennia ago: jokes. The integration was not smooth. Many Cravians found human unpredictability disturbing. Their chaotic approach to problem-solving seemed inefficient, their constant questioning of authority disrespectful, their obsession with entertainment frivolous. But results were undeniable. Cravian research divisions incorporating human creativity accelerated technological development beyond all projections. Military units adopting human adaptability demonstrated enhanced effectiveness in simulations, and for the first time in recorded history, Cravians began to develop art forms beyond functional design. As for Commandant Sorak, he never returned to active military service. Instead, he became the first Cravian professor at a human university, teaching a wildly popular course called Galactic Perspectives. His students found him rigid, formal, and utterly fascinated by everything human. His most famous lecture, recorded and shared across both human and Cravian space, ended with words that would transform the Empire's understanding of strength. For 10,000 cycles, the Cravian Empire conquered through force, efficiency, and technological superiority. We believe these were the only paths to power. Earth taught us otherwise. True strength lies not in perfection, but in adaptation, not in uniformity, but in diversity, not in following established paths, but in creating new ones. The humans have a saying: the only constant is change. They don't just accept this truth, they embrace it, celebrate it, turn it into a strength. This is why no one returns from Earth unchanged. This is why Earth remains unconquered. And this is why, I believe, humans will ultimately shape the future of our galaxy, not as conquerors, but as catalysts. In the decades that followed, other alien civilizations would approach Earth with conquest in mind. The wise ones heeded the Cravian warning: don't try to defeat them. You can't. The only question is how much they'll change you before you realize it. Those who ignored the warning learned the lesson firsthand. Earth doesn't fight to win. Earth fights to transform, and in transformation lies humanity's truest victory.